Fantasy hockey GMs across the NHL world ready to make some moves on Waiver-Wire Monday. That's exactly why you're tapped right back in to your daily source for fantasy hockey news and betting breakdowns, the Monday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, serving up all of the top waiver-wire targets that you need and big-time bets. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to your daily source for betting breakdowns and, of course, fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We couldn't be doing the pod without y'all, and we sincerely appreciate all the support and feedback we get from you guys every single week. Hit the DMs on Instagram, Twitter. Everywhere we are here to support any questions that you guys have. Steele and I really appreciate it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I was thinking about this before I came on today's episode, y'all. By the way, thank you so much for joining me. If you've been feeling the pod, smash that 5-star review anywhere you take in your favorite content. Helps us grow, helps us get better, and that's what today is all about. Week 3, waiver wire. Fantasy GMs in the hockey game right now, you're going to want to instinctively make some moves to try and update your squad. If it's been a rough ride, been a bit of a rough ride for me, up and down, week 1 good, last week not so good. You're going to want to make adjustments before things get too far off the rails here. So I'm going to give you my 5 favorite waiver wire targets for the upcoming week. I'm going to wrap the show up with a same game parlay for Monday's 8-game betting board. First and foremost, the NHL action from this past weekend was some serious action. All across the board, regardless of the game you were watching, they were juicy matchups. And I've got a bunch of targets that I could talk about today, but I want to rein it in here. Number 1 that I had on my list. This Vegas Golden Knights team is looking sensational. The top line of Eichel, Barbashev, and Stone, all of those guys near the top of the table in terms of offensive production already, just looking deadly out there at both ends of the ice. They are first in the NHL in goals for with 42 scored. And one of the players that I love right now, especially after the weekend that I saw, is Pavel Dorofeyev. And right now, he is only owned at 29% on Fantrax, 4% on Yahoo, 2% on ESPN. They got Calgary, LA, and Utah this week. What attracts me the most to this player, aside from getting that deployment right now on the top power play unit for a dangerous offensive club, is that he's putting up points and he is a playmaker. He's got skills to pay the bills, not to cop out with a really bad description there, but he is a pure offensive talent and not a huge track record, but he has a big frame, 6'1", 194 pounds. I like what this kid is doing. And I think as he continues to get deployed on that top line and along with the second line unit on the Vegas Golden Knights, he has to be considered. And as long as this Golden Knights team continues to look this dangerous at the offensive end, along with Thomas Hertl there on the second line, Brett Howden, Dorofeyev was number 1 jumping off the page for me. He is going to be out there. So go out there and grab yourself a piece. If he continues to stick in the top 6 and Vegas continues to click, this is going to be a player that's not just a stream. It's not just a week-to-week ad. You're going to be holding him down for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. Now, next, a player that I've talked about at length. Steele's not here today. By the way, if you guys missed Saturday's episode, I got called out for backing Miro Heiskanen this season. Hey, my boy, check the stat line for Miro Heiskanen on Saturday night. The guy's going to be just fine. I had to get that plug in there. Steele took a shot at me while I wasn't here. I got to take a shot at him while he's not. By the way, my boy will be back Tuesday's episode. We will continue to cover all of the news out of the NHL. We're going to have a look into both of our teams, how we're faring, steals and slips, Cole Perfetti has 9 points through 8 games. By the way, these Winnipeg Jets are looking dangerous, and it's not just because they're 8-0. Yeah, of course, that makes sense. 20 plus goal differential. That leads the NHL. They're rolling 3 solid lines. Shout out to an honorable mention on the waiver wire in Nino Niederreiter. But Cole Perfetti is a player that I've had my eye on for forever. A 10th overall pick. I'm not the only one to have my eye on this player and to have high expectations for him, especially when he absolutely lit up junior. He was a star for the World Juniors in Canada on the world stage, and he is finally kind of living up to that hype. And I know 9 points through 8 games, it's 8 games. But this is a player that, because I've talked so much about, as he is going right now, I'm going to jump on the train as much as I possibly can. 30 points 2 years ago in 51 games. The needle started to point in the right direction. Then last year, starting to get more opportunity. 38 points in 71 games. Injuries have been a concern right now. As long as he's healthy and he continues to eat more minutes, and I know, like, look, he's still hovering around 14 minutes in ice time per night. I think he can go up, but that's just how balanced this squad is right now. He is playing on that second line. He's playing with Nikolai Ehlers. He's also playing with Nemesnikov. I like that line. Everything right now in Winnipeg is pointing in the right direction, big time offensively. You want to get a piece of these teams, like thinking about this coming on today. Vegas Golden Knights, get yourself a piece. Winnipeg Jets, get yourself a piece. Is it going to last? No, but that's what Waiver Wire Mondays are all about. Stream these guys, have a look at the matchups. Depending on the format of your league, depending on what you need, these are the options that I want to throw your way, because before long, you're going to need to make some changes. In our league, in our listener leagues, I've made only a couple of moves. Some guys are out there, some gals are out there making a handful of moves. Just make sure you're looking and knowing what you're doing. And that's easier said than done, but it helps to do the research. It helps to tap into the pod. I've got a few more of my favorite waiver wire targets. I got a forward, a D-man, and a goalie. I got my same game parlay coming up for Monday night's betting action. Taking a look at that Edmonton-Columbus game. You can see where I'm headed with that one. I'll break it all down coming up right after the break. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. You got to be checking out PrizePicks. It's one of our favorite spots to be making daily fantasy wagers. Take a look at some props. Justin Jefferson, over or under receiving yards. Patty Mahomes, over under passing yards. How about Tyreek Hill? You can get in on all of the action for all of your favorite sports. Right now, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's always PrizePicks. Make sure you're checking it out. Download the app today. That's PrizePicks. Run your game. Shout out to everyone holding us down. Monday episode coming in hot. Waiver Wire Mondays, perhaps never as critical than this time of year. Could be the difference when it comes to April, when it comes to getting your team into the playoffs. Yeah, of course, you can always find some diamonds in the rough at all times of the season. But right now, I feel like those who really maneuver the waiver wire properly, and expertly, they are the teams that you see at the top of the table at the end of the season. So let me throw some love at a player that I personally own in my Keeper Dynasty League, had a really good season last year, is getting another good look on the top line with the St. Louis Blues this year. When a 21-year-old player scores 27 goals in the NHL, and I know there wasn't a ton of love going Jake Neighbours' way, maybe some saying that it was an inflated number based on, his shooting percentage, based on his overall skill level. This is also a guy who had 138 hits last year. And through 9 games this year, chipping in with the peripherals, 24 hits, 4 block shots. He's got 8 penalty minutes, but also now heating up. In his last 5 games, 4 goals, and a player that I just really like. And, I don't just come on here and say a lot of times that I'm invested into these players because I think it's a fun thing. I am invested into these players. And Jake Neighbours is one of them. Say what you will about what the St. Louis Blues are going to shake out to be this season. Obviously, a little bit of an up and down start for the Blues. However, I kind of like what I've seen. 5-4, they are going to be on the bubble for a playoff spot. And that means to me, there's even more value in a guy like Jake Neighbours. So let me bring up his numbers here. Jake Neighbours out there, 61% on Fantrax, 17 owned in Yahoo, and 8% on ESPN. The Blues this week, by the by, they got Ottawa, Philly, and Toronto. I'm really liking that week for the St. Louis Blues. Jake Neighbours has been looking a lot more comfortable. Jake Neighbours is a player that I've been speaking about for a long time. I'm not going to back off of him now. Some injuries, obviously. Robert Thomas up there. That's not something that I want to come on here and say I love for an offensive punch on this team that doesn't have a ton. Playing with Braden Shen and Brandon Saad on that top line. Also playing on the top power play unit. Got to be taking a look at Jake Neighbours, who I expect to continue to stay hot. Now, bit of a deeper cut here, but a player that has been on the radar for Detroit Red Wings fans since being drafted 6th overall in the 2021 NHL draft, Simon Edvinsson. This is a big boy. 6'6", 210 pounds for Edvinsson, and a player that is starting to look very comfortable playing on the top pairing along with Moritz Seider. So first and foremost, playing with Moritz Seider on a Detroit Red Wings team that perhaps much like the St. Louis Blues in the Western Conference will be on the bubble in the East for a spot. I am loving what I'm seeing so far from Edvinsson. 1 goal, 3 assists through 8 games. Not a ton of peripheral value aside from block shots. The man is blocking a ton of shots, chipping in with the hits a little bit too. And the fact that he is getting some looks on that top pairing, not getting some looks right now, getting the look, I got to continue to pay attention to these situations. I'm just bringing up to make sure he is also getting, not right now, second power play time, but if that starts to happen on the second unit, loving it even more. I want to bring up his ownership numbers. Up to 46% on Fantrax, 4% on Yahoo, 8% on ESPN. This week for the Red Wings, only the Blackhawks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. However, if he sticks on that top pairing, which for now it's looking like it's going to be that case, really like the future for Simon Edvinsson. There's a reason he's such a high draft pick. He can throw his body around once he continues to get comfortable. He's only 21 years old. I think there's going to be even more value coming for this player. The Detroit Red Wings themselves, kind of a ho-hum start, 4-4, very similar to what I was just talking about with the St. Louis Blues. Very even in terms of goal differential. So far, Alex Lyon holding down that cage. However, Simon Edvinsson, you're looking for some love on the blue line. I'd be taking a look at him not only for this week, but in terms of a more long-term play. I want to get to my final waiver wire target right after the break, along with my big-time bets coming in hot. Been a pretty good start for your boy so far. I got a same-game parlay coming. Monday night's usually a quiet board. Tonight, 8 games, juicy matchups. Been loving what I'm seeing so far across the board. If you're a new hockey fan, new to fantasy especially, this is the perfect time to jump in, enjoy what you're seeing. Hope you continue to enjoy today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. You know we love to make our wagers on FanDuel. And right now, NFL fans, tackle the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $100 on bonus bets with your first $5 wager. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with your $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more. America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel. Giddy up, my friends. It's been a long week for your boy. I've been on the IR, been feeling under the weather. Steele and I have been busy. We hope to continue to get you guys in and out of here 30 minutes or under with all of the NHL and fantasy hockey news that you need every single Monday. Waiver wire targets every single night. Betting breakdowns, lock of the night. I got those coming up. Like I alluded to multiple points on today's episode. just an exciting time after such a long summer of waiting for our favorite game to come back. But sometimes there are wrinkles, and one of the wrinkles that have obviously been a hot topic for the Vancouver Canucks is Thatcher Demko's health. And I know Artur Shilov's came in the postseason and proved that he can make some big saves. And I'm not trying to say that by any stretch of the imagination, Kevin Lankinen is now the savior and the answer in Vancouver. However, until we know more about Thatcher Demko's near future and availability, the hot hand has so very clearly been Kevin Lankinen. And if he continues to put up performances like he did against Pittsburgh on Saturday night, and I know he was only rocking an 875 save percentage, he allowed 3 goals on 24 shots. That was his worst performance, I would say, perhaps, of the entire season. He's been good. And Artur Shilov's, no disrespect, Rick Tocchet really doesn't give a damn who is in the cage. So I'm looking at this opportunity, especially over the next couple of weeks. And Lankinen up there in ownership now, 55 on Fantrax, 51 on Yahoo, only 8 on ESPN. They got the Carolina Hurricanes, Devils, and Sharks this week. And I still do expect, at least in the very near future, that Tocchet gives Shilov some continued looks. But I just think that if Lankinen continues to play like this, especially it's not going to take that long, and you can go out there and nab Lankinen now, goaltenders, the Canucks are a good team. And they proved it. I know Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh, but they have had some nice wins over the last couple of weeks. Peterson is starting to pick it up. Elias Pettersson, sorry. 4-0-1 for Lankinen this season. 1.95 goals against, a 930 save percentage, and a shutout. This is a guy who played for Chicago and Nashville as a backup, perennial backup, but getting an opportunity and making the most of it. So when it comes to fantasy hockey and jumping on a number one goaltender that, even if he's not actually that in terms of quality, but right now he's giving you that value, have to talk about it. Take a look at Lankinen over the next week or two. I would just put him on my roster and hope that not only are you going to get those kind of in-between wins and value right now, hope that he continues to hold down and take that away from Shilov's, giving even more value. I'm going to try and do the same here, my friends, with my big-time bets for Monday night. What a juicy board. And when I'm looking at this, Florida into Buffalo, Nashville into Tampa Bay, Chicago at Colorado even, Toronto into Winnipeg, really good game. Vegas and Calgary, really good game. Carolina and Vancouver, another one. I'm going to cop out a little bit, and I'm going to take a look at the Edmonton Oilers, 3-4-1, into Columbus, 3-3-1. It's Cannon country. And I'm just going to kind of go to the old reliable here. And I got a same game parlay, 3 picks, including my lock of the night. I'll get to my lock of the night in a second because I think it's kind of obvious. The Edmonton Oilers up and down. They looked good on Saturday night. I'm just going to ride with them. I'm going to ride with the Edmonton Oilers here. 6-3-1, the Edmonton Oilers in their last 10 games against the Columbus Blue Jackets. First and foremost, this is a team with far too much talent that when you play teams like Columbus and you were in the Stanley Cup final last year in Game 7, you got to be taking it to these squads. No disrespect to Troy, big CBJ fan. Edmonton just dealt with Pittsburgh 4-0 on Saturday. I think I'm butchering a couple of these games. But anyway, here we go. Over in this game is where I'm headed initially, but I want to take Connor McDavid over 1.5 points, anytime points in his career against the Columbus Blue Jackets. 9 goals, 21 assists in 16 regular season games. McDavid is going to get his. He's going to carry his team to the victory. The Columbus Blue Jackets have some very intriguing young talent. I'm not going to deny it, and I'm actually starting to really like them from like a week-to-week fantasy perspective. They're going to get dusted here. They just lost to Nashville 4-3 in their last performance. That's why I'm liking the over as my lock of the night. So it's going to be Edmonton on the money line. It's going to be Connor McDavid over 1.5 points. My lock of the night, Columbus has been involved with a ton of crooked scoring games, 7, 8, 9, 10 to start this season. Edmonton's going to have their way with them, and Stuart Skinner is probably good for 1 or 2. So I'm loving the over as my lock of the night. Take it at 6.5 if you want. Tease it down to 5.5. I'm going to see what the lines are doing at game time. I'd be fine with either. Put it along with Edmonton on the money line, along with Connor McDavid over 1.5 anytime points. Those are my 3 picks for Monday night's 8-game betting board. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for making us the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Hope you've enjoyed the solo episode. I'll see you again tomorrow, back with my boy Steele and the rest of the week. Peace.